The journey to solve Jeffrey Dahmer, the devil in apartment 213. He smiled gently, spoke softly, and lived like a normal person in an apartment complex in the heart of Milwaukee. But behind the door of room 213 was a hell that even seasoned police officers would vomit at the sight of. In 1991, America woke up to a nightmare. In the city of Milwaukee, police raided the small apartment of a man named Jeffrey Dahmer, and what they saw became one of the most gruesome scenes in the history of world crime. Inside the refrigerator was a human head. In the freezer were a human heart and hand. In a plastic barrel was acid dissolving someone's body part. On the bed were dozens of Polaroid photos of him taking pictures of human corpses as favorite souvenirs. Jeffrey Dahmer, Milwaukee Cannibal, murdered at least 17 men and teenagers over the course of more than a decade. He not only killed, but also dismembered, ate, and kept their body parts. This case not only shocked America with its brutality, but also exposed fatal flaws in the police system, when Dahmer was often let go even when his victims were dying. To understand Dahmer, we must start with where he was born, where darkness sprouted from a very early age. Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer was born on the 21st of May 1960 in the small town of West Allis, Wisconsin. His father, Lionel Dahmer, was a quiet chemist. His mother, Joyce, suffered from depression and often argued with her husband. There was no love in that house, only screams, the sound of broken bottles, and the lost eyes of a lonely child. From a young age, Jeffrey was different. While his friends played baseball or toy cars, he enjoyed dissecting roadside animals. He collected bones, dipping them in acid his father had left in the garage. The boy was not disgusted. On the contrary, he enjoyed the bubbling sound as the flesh dissolved. When his father discovered it, he thought it was just scientific curiosity, not knowing that his son was practicing for real crime. Dahmer's teenage years were quiet and lonely. At school, he was quiet, sometimes acting strange, faking seizures to attract attention. His friends called him the strange boy. But no one suspected that his mind was filled with fantasies of death and possession. When he reached puberty, Dahmer realized he was attracted to men. But it wasn't just sexual. He dreamed of possessing someone completely, so they couldn't leave him. And in his mind, there was only one way to keep someone forever: kill them. In 1978, Dahmer graduated from high school. One day in June, he drove down the road and met a young man named Stephen Hicks, who was hitchhiking to a music festival. Dahmer invited him home for a beer. They talked, listened to music, and when Stephen got up to leave, Dahmer felt a wave of panic rise. He didn't want to be left alone. He took an iron barbell and hit Stephen on the head. Then he sat there, looking at the body, shaking, but not afraid. That night, Dahmer dissected the body, dismembered it, and soaked it in acid. It was his first murder, and he later said, "It felt like a hangover, and I never woke up again." After that, Dahmer went to college, then the army, but he couldn't fit in. He drank heavily and was kicked out of the army. From there, he began his descent into darkness. During the 1,980 seconds, he wandered around, worked as a laborer, and then moved back in with his grandmother in Milwaukee. She was devoutly religious, hoping that her presence would make Dahmer better. But the basement where he slept became a crime lab. He lured young men home with money, promises of nude photos, then drugged them, strangled them, and, as the bodies lay there, thought they were most beautiful when they stopped moving. He kept their heads in cabinets, photographing each stage of dismemberment, as if keeping a private collection of death. In September 1988, police arrested Dahmer for the first time for luring a 3-year-old boy into his apartment and molesting him. He was sentenced to 1 year of probation and 5 years of probation. This was supposed to be a chance to prevent tragedy, but after his release from prison, he returned to killing faster than before. Apartment 213 at 924 North 25th Street became the scene of most of his crimes. Neighbors complained about the stench and the sound of drilling late at night, but when the police arrived, Dahmer simply smiled and said, "I keep fish, they die." They believed him. The neighbors thought he was just a lonely eccentric. Little did they know that every night, behind that thin wall, there was the sound of saws, the sound of boiling acid, and the smell of decomposing bodies. From 1989 to 1991, Milwaukee became a crime scene that no one noticed. Jeffrey Dahmer continued to kill with increasing frequency. With each murder, he took his perversion one step further, taking pictures of his victims before and after death, keeping their heads, hearts, and bones, and even eating them as a way to keep them with me forever. He later told police, "I just wanted them to stay with me. I couldn't bear to be left alone. Eating them was the only way I could keep them." Unsolved disappearances. Milwaukee was experiencing a series of disappearances of young black men. They were all young, mostly LGBTQ+. Many were immigrants or homeless people society easily forgets. No one connected the cases. The police dismissed it as normal, thinking they had left or moved. But in reality, they were in Dahmer's refrigerator. He meticulously recorded names, dates, and times, took photos of each stage of dismemberment, and pasted them into albums. One of the victims, Anthony Sears, was so favored by Dahmer that he kept his head and penis in a paint can. The strange-smelling neighbor. Dahmer's apartment always smelled of something rotten. The neighbor, Glenda Cleveland, called the police several times. She said it smelled like a corpse and there were screams at night. But each time the police came, Dahmer just laughed, pointed to the refrigerator and said, "I spoiled the beef. Sorry about the smell." And they left. Glenda later said, "I don't understand why they didn't look into his eyes. I saw something cold, empty, like he had no soul. If the police had opened the refrigerator, they could have saved at least 5 lives." The Konarak synthesomphone tragedy. The night of the 27th of May, 1991, a 14-year-old Laotian boy, Konarak synthesomphone, ran naked down the street, covered in blood, trying to call for help. A woman called the police. When they arrived, Dahmer appeared, calmly saying the boy was his boyfriend, that we were just arguing. The police looked at Dahmer, fair-skinned, soft-spoken, then at Konarak, who was Asian, drugged, and spoke no English. They handed the child back to Dahmer. Just hours later, Dahmer killed and dismembered Konarak. A Polaroid photograph of the boy's body after his death would become horrifying evidence later, and Dahmer's crimes continued for another 2 months. Apartment 213, the Graveyard of Souls. Jeffrey Dahmer continued to work as usual. By day, he was a worker at the Ambrosia Chocolate Factory. By night, he was a hunter. In room 213, he kept 7 skulls, a vat of acid, and a refrigerator filled with human flesh. He once told the police, "I intend to build an altar, with heads painted gold, to remember them, and to make myself feel strong." He saw death as art. He believed he could turn people into permanent objects of display. Tracy Edwards, the only survivor. On the 22nd of July, 1991, Dahmer met Tracy Edwards, 32, at a bar. He lured him to his apartment to drink beer and take some pictures. But as soon as Tracy entered the room, she noticed a terrible stench and a barrel of chemicals in the corner. On the wall were pictures of naked men in strange poses. Dahmer tied his hands, held a knife to his head, and whispered, "I'm going to eat your heart." Tracy tried to stay calm, talked to Dahmer, and pretended to cooperate. When Dahmer was caught off guard, he punched him, fled the apartment, and stopped a police car on the street. The doors of hell open. When police officers Rolf Mueller and Robert Routh arrived at the apartment, Dahmer remained calm. He smiled and said, "We can work this out." But when a police officer opened a desk drawer, he found a stack of Polaroid photos, pictures of dismembered bodies. He fell silent, turned to Dahmer, and said, "Are these real?" Dahmer just nodded. When the officer opened the refrigerator, a cold, stiff human head lay in the top drawer. In the freezer, there was a heart, hands, and feet. A 57-gallon plastic drum containing 3 bodies dissolving in acid. The officer ran outside to vomit. One said, "That's not an apartment anymore. It's a cemetery." America was shocked. News of the Milwaukee Cannibal spread across America. Newspapers, television, and hundreds of investigators flocked to the scene. Neighbors were shocked they had had beer with Dahmer. They had greeted him every morning. People were angry, asking, why did the police let him kill for so long? During interrogation, Dahmer confessed to everything. He recounted each murder in detail, without fear. He remembered names, remembered dates, and spoke of bodies as souvenirs. An officer recorded in the transcript. He spoke of murder as if it were a dinner routine. Calm, precise, cold. When the police left apartment 213, no one said a word. They only knew they had just left a place, not of men, but of demons. Jeffrey Dahmer was arrested on the evening of the 22nd of July, 1991. The whole city of Milwaukee was in shock. The news was all over the television. Police found 11 human heads in the refrigerator. People crowded outside the apartment complex, carrying signs reading, "Devil's Apartment," a place they had passed by unnoticed just the night before. Dahmer was taken to the police station in a strange state of consciousness. He did not resist, did not argue. When the police asked, "Why did you do this?" he simply replied, in a soft voice as if recounting a dream, "I don't know. I just want them with me, forever." The FBI's chilling confessions. Dahmer cooperated completely during 2 weeks of interrogation. He detailed each murder, each body position, each feeling. The investigators sat silently, flipping through his photographs, a gallery of death. He described each death as a twisted work of art, where he expressed love in his own way. "I didn't kill them because I hated them. I did it because I was afraid they would leave me. When they died, they were there forever, and no one could take them away." The words stunned the entire investigation team. Dahmer had not lost control. He was sane, intelligent, and knew exactly what he was doing. A demon who knew he was a demon, but didn't want to stop. The forgotten victims. When the list of victims was released, America was silent. All young men of color, Asian descent, or homeless. The people society most easily forgets are the perfect prey for Dahmer. The family wept when they learned that their son had disappeared in apartment number 213, where only bones and photographs remained. A mother said on television, "He killed my son, then ate him. But what hurts me the most is that the police had a chance to save him, and they did nothing." That statement caused a stir in public opinion. Thousands of people protested in front of the Milwaukee police station, denouncing indifference, discrimination, and irresponsibility. And it was true. If the police had believed the woman who called the police the night Conorak ran away, there would not have been 5 more victims. The trial of the century. On the 30th of January 1992, Jeffrey Dahmer was brought to trial in the Wisconsin State Court. The courtroom was packed, newspapers, television, and even people crowded in. Dahmer, blonde, bespectacled, thin, sat silently. He did not deny his guilt. He claimed only that he had lost control of himself, that he had mental problems. Defense attorneys tried to prove that Dahmer suffered from a personality disorder and extreme sexual obsession, and that he lacked self-awareness. But government psychiatrists concluded otherwise. He was sane. He knew right from wrong. He chose his crimes. A psychologist said, "Jeffrey Dahmer was not crazy. He was cold. He killed people with a plan, then went about his business as if nothing had happened." As the grief poured out, in the courtroom, relatives of the victims spoke one by one. Many cried, some fainted. A father stood up and shouted at Dahmer, "Why did you kill my son? He was only 19. Do you know what you did?" Dahmer did not respond. He just bowed his head, his hands shaking slightly, not because of fear, but because he knew he was exposed. On the 15th of February 1992, the court announced the verdict. Jeffrey Dahmer was sentenced to 15 consecutive life sentences, a total of 957 years. There was no death penalty in Wisconsin, so he would spend the rest of his life in prison. When he heard the verdict, he just nodded. He didn't cry. He didn't get angry. He turned to his lawyer and whispered, "I think I deserve to die." Life in prison. In prison, Dahmer lived in isolation for a while because other inmates threatened to kill him. But gradually, he began to show sincerity, participating in Bible reading, getting baptized, and saying, "God has forgiven me." Many people thought it was another act. Dahmer always knew how to make others believe he had changed. However, no one in prison believed him. To them, he was a cannibal, someone who did not deserve to live. Death in Columbia Prison. On the morning of the 28th of November 1994, Dahmer and two other inmates, Christopher Scarver and Jesse Anderson, were assigned to clean the bathroom. At around 8 a.m., guards heard a loud noise. When they ran in, Dahmer was lying on the floor, his head broken, blood all over the floor. Scarver, a convicted murderer, held a bloody iron bar and said coldly, "God told me to do it." Jeffrey Dahmer died on the spot, blood all over the prison bathroom floor, just as he had killed so many victims. When news of his death spread, the people of Milwaukee breathed a sigh of relief, but also fell into an indescribable silence. Some people were happy, considering it justice. Others said, death was too easy for him. He deserved to live to feel guilty every day. After the nightmare, apartment 213 was demolished. The apartment complex where Dahmer lived was vacated, then completely demolished to erase all traces. But the people of Milwaukee could not forget. The smell of blood, the photos, and the question, how could this have happened for so many years without anyone noticing, still haunted them. The families of the victims set up a memorial fund and placed a stone in a nearby park. It read, "Let them not be forgotten. Man or monster?" Psychologists have debated Dahmer for years. Some say he was a victim of childhood isolation and mental illness, but most agree. He was a man fully aware of his actions, but chose the path of darkness. Dahmer once said before he died, "I know what I did was wrong. I know I destroyed many families. If I could, I would die so they could rest in peace." Perhaps, in that moment, he truly realized what he had never understood in his entire life, that love cannot come from possession, and loneliness cannot be soothed by human blood. Echoes of a smile. Jeffrey Dahmer died, but his name lives on. Movies, documentaries, books, podcasts, dozens of works recreate that crime. Every time someone mentions Dahmer, people are not just talking about a murderer, but about a symbol of extreme indifference and loneliness in modern society. He did not scream, did not go crazy. He just smiled and killed. That smile, the smile that neighbors once thought was gentle, has now become a symbol of darkness, wearing the cloak of ordinary people. There is nothing more terrifying than a man who looks normal, but has the soul of a devil. Quote from investigator Patrick Kennedy, who first interrogated Dahmer.